Recovery efforts are underway in China's Henan province as floodwaters finally begin to recede, but the death toll has risen to 56. In the worst-hit city of Zhengzhou, firefighters continue to pump muddy water from tunnels. Workers have also started cleaning up the area, clearing debris like marooned bicycles and scooters. In some neighborhoods, water levels remain waist-high. Tens of thousands of rescue workers, including the military, have also been called in. But weather experts are now anxiously monitoring an approaching typhoon, which has already dumped heavy rainfall in China's east coast. Olivia Xiong is live for us in Zhengzhou. Olivia, get us up to speed with the situation. Has it eased now?
Well, this was ground zero here in Zhengzhou, and at first glance it would seem that, things are back to normal. The traffic is flowing, people are going about their evening. But if we were to look a little bit closer, one could perhaps say that this is a city that's trying to pick up the pieces, and some of the physical scars from the heavy rains and flooding that took place still remain. As we were driving around the city, we saw cars that had been submerged, abandoned still by the roadside. There are still sandbags in some areas as well. We also know that many of these roads had been flooded, and in particular, authorities have worked to drain many of these water-clogged roads. But in particular, we are looking at this Jingguang Tunnel, which is a 2-kilometer long underpass, and we drove by it and had a look just now, and it still remains out of bounds to cars. And we do know that when the heavy rains hit on Tuesday, there were cars and vehicles that were trapped inside, and 2 people had died as a result. Authorities are still working to pump water out of there, and reports say that there are over 100 vehicles still inside. And the official Xinhua news agency is saying that there are more casualties. It's just that we don't know how many are dead because of being trapped in that tunnel at the moment, and so we'll have to wait and see. Another very painful reminder, I want to show you where we are. This is the Haitansi subway station, and it was between here and another subway station just about 1 kilometer in that direction where we saw the tragic news of people being trapped in a subway underground as flood waters came rushing in. We do know that about a dozen people at least have died as a result of that, and the subway station continues to remain closed. And that's because over here, if we were to take a walk, you can see that authorities are continuing to drain water out of the station. It's said that they will only be able to complete this drainage by noon tomorrow, and we still do not know whether the subway will open. And that's because reports are saying that there are still people here in Zhengzhou who say their family members are missing. They believe their family members had been on that subway that had been submerged, and they say they still are not contactable. And so this is something that they have brought to the railway authorities, and this is something that they are looking for answers for. And so we continue to see Zhengzhou, a city that's still trying to deal with the aftermath of those heavy rains and the devastation and that rising death toll as well.
And while it tries to cope, Olivia, the coming typhoon could worsen the misery.
Yeah, right now what we do know, as you can see here, it's a bit dark, but it's not raining at the moment. It's stopped. And what has happened is we've seen the bad weather, the heavy rainfall move northwards from Zhengzhou. In fact, we had just come from a place called Xinxiang, which is an hour-and-a-half drive from here. And this morning, we thought there may have been some respite, but the heavy rain continued overnight and into this morning. And so what we saw were flooded main roads once again, people walking knee-deep in water, people having to be evacuated through the use of excavators. In fact, they had to ride in them. And what was also concerning is that we heard news that the Wei River, which borders the city, had burst its banks and overflowed into the city and also submerged villages in the area. And so we saw rescue teams on site. They were trying to evacuate people. And so we heard many of these stories when people knew we were from the media. They had come to us and asked asked if we knew how to contact the rescue teams. And so we continue to see Henan province as a whole continuing to deal with this bad weather, and will continue to have to deal and try to keep its death toll and casualties and injuries as more people continue to be affected by this rainy season.
Many thanks for getting us up to speed with it all. Olivia Xiong there speaking to us from Zhengzhou in China.